Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show, the Comedy in the Kingdom Tour edition, with one of the comedians on the Comedy in the Kingdom Tour coming your way next summer. You're listening to Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks, and that's one of our comedians that will be on the tour from the Northern Virginia area, whom I've known for several years, who brings you the LOL GCA Comedy Conference every year, along with Roxanne David. She's a friend of the Maurice Brown Comedy Show. We've done shows together in the DC area, and also a member, as I said, of the Comedy in the Kingdom Tour. I could say more, but I'm running out of gas. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring her on. Welcome, Valena Metcalfe. What's up, Valena? How are you?
Hey, Maurice, how are you? I'm doing good, so I know you're doing great.
I am doing great. It is also awesome to have you on this show as we're putting the Comedy in the Kingdom Tour together. You are a part of that, a clean Christian comedy tour we're working on to bring to the world in the summer of 2024. People like yourself and Leland Clausen and Felicia Fifi Frazier, Shanita Chocolate Morris, Robert G. Lee, Joey Aiello, Christy Condor. The list goes on and on. We got Kim Curley as well, a part of the tour. So this is just going to be, and so many other great names I didn't mention. This is going to be a lot of fun, but we want the world to know that there are tremendous, clean Christian comedians out there that the world needs to know about that will have you doubled over. They're that funny. I'm telling you, the world needs to catch hold of this now. They are that funny. I also forgot, speaking of doubled over, Kaysad Wilson is also a part of the tour. Kaysad is a writer on the Jon Stewart staff, who was the host of The Daily Show for several years, now has a show called The Problem with Jon Stewart, and Kaysad is a writer on that staff. So, but Valena, thank you so much once again for being on the show. How's life been treating you?
You know, Maurice, I'm so excited. Just came out of the LOL GCA Comedy Conference just like 2 weeks ago. And some of those heavy hitters that you mentioned that's part of this awesome Kingdom Comedy Tour was there with us here in Northern Virginia. This was our 14th year annual comedy conference.
Wow.
And we had 16 states represented, and then Leland represented Canada.
Yes.
So we was a packed house and a wonderful time. And as you know, I'm the vice president of the Living on Laughter Gospel Comedy Association. And my mentor and president, Roxanne David, aka Miss Clarice. You know, we look forward to doing these every October and having comics come from near and far. And like I said, Boots was on the ground 2 weeks ago, and we had a fantastic time. And Willie Brown was there, who is also part of the Kingdom Comedy Tour. So I'm excited, Maurice. I already told you thank you, but thank you so much for spearheading this. This is a vision you talked to me about maybe 5+ years ago before you relocated, and to see it coming into fruition is just incredible.
Yes. Well, you know, and speaking of the LOL GCA, I've been a part of it over the past 5 to 7 years. I know I was a big proponent of the conference, and just moving around. Like you said, I moved to Texas, and I moved here and there, and I've missed the last 2 or 3, but it's a great conference. And of course, Roxanne David, which is AKA Miss Clarice, also she's grandma. You said Roxanne is grandma to the conference. Everybody love Roxanne. She got a great big hug and an "I love you" for all the comics, and everybody,
and a sloppy wet kiss.
Yeah. And she, you know, Roxanne has encouraging words for all the comedians there. She makes you feel really good. She makes you feel welcome. She organizes this whole conference along with yourself, as I opened the show with, and it's so much going on. You have the seminars, you have the open mic night, and then you have a comedy showcase. And then the winner of the showcase, you guys have provided, you know, a prize for the
Yes.
winner. I mean, a pretty decent little purse for winning it. Who was the winner this year, Valena?
We actually did a different route this year. It was more, as you indicated, we do a lot of empowerment sessions where you have newbies that are sitting there and they're gleaming so much from the veterans. And so
Yeah.
this year we were so focused on pouring into the comics, and we
Okay.
did a panel discussion, which was something new. And
Okay.
again, you have attended many of the LOL conferences, and we have missed you dearly. And so this year, we actually asked some comedians, hey, will you guys do our little showcase? And
Okay.
so we got to see Joey. I mean, Joey cut up. Joey ILO, he cut up, and
Yes.
Fifi was in it. So it's just kind of good when you kind of can sit there and gleam. And it's not about the competition, but just pouring into one another. So this year we had about 7 of our very own participating. So no competition, but there has been some great prizes of like $1,000 cash purse in times past. So yeah, we did it a little different this year, but it was well received.
I know one of the beautiful things about the conference, also, as I mentioned, are the seminars where you go
Yes.
in and you learn about the craft of comedy, how to market yourself, advertise yourself on social media platforms, and all those different things that we all need to know as comedians. Because a lot of the guys that oftentimes in any craft, the best ones are usually the ones that don't make it. It's the ones that are, like you said, boots on the ground, working hard, learning how to market yourself,
Mhm.
learning how to make people aware of who you are. And of
That's
course,
good.
when that door opens, you have to be ready as well. I was talking with Anthony Hackett, the director of the film Love Different, that I was blessed to be a part of in 2016. Well, he's got a film coming out on December 8th called The Perfect Christmas,
Ah,
and opera it's going to be opening up in theaters nationwide. But the
awesome.
opportunity came along, and he was ready. It could have come along, and he would be like, "Okay, hold on a second, be right back." No, 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 no. Hey, Valine, there's no time for be right back. Are you ready? And he had
Yeah.
already done the film. He had written it and done the film. He had already produced it. And the door opened, and he was ready, walked right in. So it's all about, I love the term that you used, boots on the ground. You've got to work yourself. You've
Yes. And
got you got to be busy. You got to be
Mar-
busy.
you got to be busy. And Maurice, let me just say this. I want to digress for 2 seconds. So, as you
Okay.
know, I'm a pastor and
Yes.
I participate every year for Pastor Wives Retreat.
Yes,
So, in
ma'am.
April this year, I was in Richmond along with other pastor wives, and they had a movie and popcorn night. And
Okay.
can I tell you how excited I was when they played Love Differently?
Oh,
Had
wow.
never seen it nor had heard about it. And when that movie came on and you walked in your scene, I just lost it. I was like, I'm sorry, ladies, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's my boy. That's gonna be. I lost my mind. So you are doing great things. I just want to give you your props. I was just so blessed to see you in there with words of wisdom. I'm not going
Yes.
to give the movie away, but
Yeah.
oh my God. And that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
being ready
Yes.
for those opportunities,
Yes.
however that might look, as comics, being ready.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you were ready, sir.
I Hey, listen, I'm telling you, I've been we've known each other, like I said, for several years, and you know that I'm always trying to find a way to get on stage to perform. I'm writing, collaborating with fellow comedians, and acting as well. I mean, if I can get an opportunity to be in a commercial or a film, I'm gonna do that. And so no, and again, your opportunities come again when you're ready to walk through that door. I gotta say it one more time, Valita. There's no time for be right back. Hold on. No, 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 no. You miss.
So let
Uh,
me say this, I was ready. I am now a voiceover actor, and I
okay.
took a 12-week class with the great Rolanda Watts. And
Okay.
so the conference, the LOLGCA, they introduced this year an audio book where
Okay.
comedians are giving scriptures in our reflection. And I was able to do all the voiceover work for female comics who submitted because it was filmed live in Triangle. And so
Okay.
if they couldn't make it, I was able to do the voiceover work. So I said that to say, be ready because you just don't know when that call is going to come in. And we have so many gifts and talents that God has equipped us and blessed us with. So your acting, my voiceover work, wow.
And I want to say one last thing too about LOLGCA is that there's so much talent that gathers there in the gospel comedy world. You know, there's so many great stand-up comics out there that will have you doubled over.
Yeah.
Again, hence the need and the call from God to do a tour so the
Come on
world
here.
can know we're out here, you know, because the world's doing their thing their way, which is oftentimes crude and rude. And I'm not throwing dirt on comedians out there that are doing their thing. There's some very talented comedians that are leading the charge in the game right now. Got that. But
Yes.
God wants it done his way. And humor, there's no need to go to the gutter. There's no need to go for that low hanging fruit. There's just no need for it. There's a couple of clean comedians out there that have even said that are not even Christian. Jerry Seinfeld,
Yep.
who's the #1 comedian in the world, lucrative wise, he's worth almost $1 billion,
Yep.
and he says, I just don't see the need to do that on stage. That's not the place to use that kind of language, which I thought was amazing. And
Yes.
Brian Regan, who's also a clean comedian, a very, very funny clean comedian. And he just says, I don't find the word economy that requires profanity to
That's
make a
right.
joke.
Yep.
And so these are like secular people apart from our faith. So we have to go out there and show what we could do in Christ.
You're
And
absolutely right.
you know what I mean? And I mean, if the world could do what they could do, how much more? I got to say it again, Valena, in Christ.
In Christ.
So here we go. We're off and running. We're going to do this thing. And I also want to add out there, if there are any Christian entrepreneurs out there that are interested in what we're talking about and supporting this tour, sponsoring this tour, if you want information about this tour, even contact me at mauricebrowncomedyhour@gmail.com or mauricebrownllc@gmail.com, or just give me a call at 703-357-6675. We're talking with comedian Valena Metcalfe on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks. So I want to play, ladies and gentlemen, a clip of Valena. She did a show not too long ago, a Clean Comedy Connection show, which was, you know, bringing veterans some shine, if you will. And we're going to give you a little snippet of Valena doing her thing at the Veterans Grow in America.
3 exercises in 5 minutes by putting on body magic. Oh, see, y'all wrong. Y'all so wrong. Some of the men looking like, what is body magic? Well, let me give them a tutorial. See, I understood now why I had to do my military regimen. Because it's a little sheet of paper about this big. And you have to step into it. You have to jump. Oh, yes, somebody, I got a witness. And you got it up to your knee. All that workout, you got it up to your knee. Then you have to shimmy. You got it up to your thigh. Then you got a Roger Rabbit. Got it up to your chest. This is when my girls came in place. You take this strap, go toward the closet. You take this strap, go by the bathroom. And meet me halfway. And it's on. And it is just on. Because I cannot move nor breathe. But it's on. My husband gonna walk past the bathroom. He gonna say, it don't take all that. I said, boy, you got 2.3 seconds to get off my face. I done gave you 10 babies, no twins, no pain meds, and you gonna tell me it don't take all that? Until I saw him the next weekend with it on. He in the bathroom talking, oh man. This thing really do work.
Hey, this thing ain't too bad. I'll tell you right now. Valena, your comedy is also physical, which is very similar to another member on our tour, Leland Klassen.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to be physical and act out moves and all those type of things, which is really asking a lot from the comedian, as we get older, and then we really feel it later, after the show, if you really get, but for you folks that need more of a background on that particular joke and routine. So we're talking about, and you got to expound on this for me a little bit too, the body magic deal, because this is really funny, but you're talking about probably a piece of cloth when it is probably no more than 10 inches wide, and you're going to squeeze your body into that thing. Break this thing down for us, Valena.
See, that's absolutely right. It's about as big as an 8x10 piece of like a piece of copy paper with all this elastic as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So you are putting all of your upper torso into this little 8x10. And so that joke is based on a true story. And I think that's why the animation is so real and so believable, because that truly happened.
Yeah.
And that's how women across the land, they all know the struggle is real. Putting on body magic or putting on a pair of brand new pantyhose, oh, that's a workout.
Yeah.
That's a workout. So that's why that's one of my bits that I can do in any room, because someone is going to be relatable in the audience.
Yes. And I was just talking to Leland Klassen, recently about that, the physical part of humor, because a lot of us will stand there and it's mostly verbiage. We'll act out here and there. But when you really rely on the physical part of it and everything, you got to be in shape to do that. You got to be pretty fit to do that. You got to have a lot of air to do that, because stand-up comedy is a very, it can be, I don't know if you've ever had this feeling before after a show, but I know for me, after I've done a show, I have this high that lasts for about you're excited, you're talking to people, you're chit-chatty, beyond chit-chatty. And then when everything slows down, it's like, whoa, I mean, you crash. I know for me, I'm just like done. I feel like I've run 10 miles. How about for you?
And that's so true, Maurice, because I fast on the day that I perform.
Okay.
And so I just take a little bit of water. So no food whatsoever. Even if I have a show like the watch night service, that's normally like at midnight on New Year's Eve. I've even had shows on those days where I didn't eat anything the entire day.
Yeah.
So being animated and being physical, you are absolutely right. That adrenaline rush is so good. But like on my way home, my husband is like, babe, I know you need to eat. Let's find something to eat. And it's like, once I really sit down, you realize, oh my goodness, this was really, to me, a 12-hour shift, because I was, we're writing, we're going over our set. It's so mental, right? It's so emotional. and depending on how the audience respond, it's a good high and it can be a low, correct? So
Yeah.
those emotions are all over the place. And once you finally do sit still, you plateau down
Yeah.
and you're like, whoa, it's such a rush though. Good
It
or
is.
bad. Good or
It is.
bad. Hmm.
And the best night of sleep you've had all week.
Like a newborn. Like a newborn.
Oh my goodness. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio. This is the Comedy and the Kingdom Tour edition. We're talking with comedian Valena Metcalfe, and the comedy tour coming your way next summer. I had, first of all, actually, before I jump into the comedy versus cancel culture, tell us about your start in comedy, and what was the trend. And I would never imagine that you were ever a secular comedian. When I say secular, someone that used profanity. But
Mhm.
tell us about how you got started in comedy. Tell us about your journey.
So it's very simple. You know, growing up, I had the ability to be a storyteller, and I was always theatrical with, as you see in that clip, being very into the role.
Yeah.
And so people used to always say, oh my God, you could tell us the smallest story, a true story,
Yeah.
and your animation is inviting. Have you thought about being a comedian? And I would always be like, absolutely not. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't be cutting up in class, not knowing I'm doing comedy. So fast forward the story. We're living here in Virginia, probably in about 2003, 2004. And we went to a comedy show back at a club called Jokes on Us. Shout out
Okay.
to Laurel, Maryland. And they
Yes.
had this awesome comedy show. So my husband and I and another couple, we went, and I'm sitting there in the audience, and it's a secular show.
Yeah.
So there was a female comic on there, and she was the opener. And so she got up, she did her thing, and she got out the way, and she was clean her whole set.
Okay.
So the rest of the show is over. And as we're leaving out, the owner promoter came up on stage and said, hey, if there's anyone in the audience who's ever interested in doing this comedy thing, we actually teach classes here once a week. Call the club on Monday and get the information. And Maurice, something in my stomach, my belly, it leaped like, this is it. You can do it. I didn't say anything to my husband. I didn't say anything to the other couple, but I called the club to get more information. And sure enough, it was like $10, and you got 3 hours of instruction by the late, great Fat Doctor, who
Yes.
is a DMV comic for over 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So he was our instructor, and I would go every Monday night. I live way down here in Triangle, and it was up in Laurel. So
Okay. Wow.
I'm driving 3 hours, but you know, it's about how you invest in yourself, right?
Yes.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
That's
So
right.
I would go and I would glean so much. And the one thing that stuck out was he would give assignments on how you write your jokes, your punchlines. You know how comedy classes go. And
Yeah.
we would always have to get up and perform in front of our classmates for constructive criticism. I
Correct.
said that to say this. Of course, I've never used profanity. I've only done Christian clean comedy. So
Uh-huh.
as I'm leaving the stage, the Fat Doctor stops me, puts his arm around my shoulder, and he was like, Lena, it's okay. You can cuss, if you want to. So
Yeah.
the class laughed, and I said, oh, because I didn't tell anyone at that time I was a minister, and I just wanted to come and learn the craft. And I
Yeah.
said, oh, no, 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 I'm okay. Thank you so much. And so he said to the class, he said, I got to say this. My good buddy, Jay Leno, has the Tonight Show. He
Yeah.
said, if Jay Leno said, hey, Fat Doctor, I need you to send me down one of your students to do my monologue.
Yeah.
He said, I can only send Lena.
Yeah.
And I felt like all eyes on me, like, who does she think she is and things of that nature. But God says that your gift will make room for you, right?
Yes.
So he told the class, I can't tell you how to do your set, but I will recommend that you have a clean set that's TV friendly, radio friendly. And then if you're going to do what you're going to do, like in a club scene. But it was some other ladies in the class that that's a whole nother story. But years later, they said I encouraged them, and they stopped doing secular comic. They gave their life to the Lord, and now they only do clean and Christian comedy. So I just praise God just for that opportunity. The tutelage, Fat Doctor left here probably about 4 years ago now.
Yeah, it's about
A
right.
great, great teacher. I learned a lot from him, and he was really my beginning.
And he was a very humble guy too. I mean, the Fat Doctor was very popular, very well known, but he just mixed into the crowd. You would never know that he was a quote unquote somebody. He's just a regular guy, down to earth, but very knowledgeable about the craft of comedy. And you know, a lot of comedians don't understand. To your point about you in this particular case, would have been the only comic that he could have sent to a Jay Leno. A lot of comics don't understand that, you know, you have, first of all, have the ability to do a clean set. That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, comedy is not based on being lewd and crude. That's not what comedy is based on. And people take examples like a Richard Pryor or a Bill Burr or a Dave Chappelle or a Kevin Hart or any of the Eddie Murphy. I can go on and on. Guys that did use lots of profanity. What a lot of comedians that are just starting out and trying to do this thing right is those guys not only can do clean sets, all the guys I just named, can do clean sets. They are concentrating on the humor first, and then whatever comes after that comes after that. But long story short, comics need to understand, hey, just be funny, right? Put the work in, formulate your jokes, set up your punches, be funny. And it's all about being lewd, and that's not the way it's done. It's not the way it's done, and that's confusing for a lot of young comedians and a lot of people. You know, they get you know, sifted out of the process actually, because they never thought about being funny. They just wanted to be like somebody that they thought was great, and they want to be like them. You got to understand what comedy is all about. The Fat Doctor was a really good guy. He was a part of the Washington, D.C. Comedy Writers Club, and I attended that when I was in the D.C. area several times as well. You got to put your work in. We're talking with comedian Valena Metcalfe on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks. We have a common comedy friend by the name of Donnie the Entertainer Stopa. And Donnie did a documentary called Comedy versus Cancel Culture. And right now he's in contract talks with getting it out on a platform. But we're going to play the documentary, Valena, and then we're going to come back and talk about it a little bit.
Cancel culture. We're talking about censorship in comedy. Do you think that cancel culture exists in comedy?
Basically, in a nutshell.
Definitely feel like, as bizarre as it sounds, like there's a war on jokes right now.
Cancel culture, it's such a misdirected umbrella term. You can't police what is subjective.
Oh, wow! Like, you kind of have to live your life bulletproof now. You just have to.
Greatest night in the history of television.
You can't say an inappropriate joke that doesn't have the right context.
There's always going to be some sliver of cancel culture, of woke, of political correctness.
You're not funny, and this is how you have to do the joke, because I know how funny jokes work. That's not the joke.
I don't believe people get canceled. I believe that they have a shift in their audience.
Put your hands together for Mr. Joe Rogan!
When people say somebody is canceled, I think it just means, oh, we found they did or said something that most people don't like.
I date a lot of bimbos. That's the problem, man.
So what?
So let's think about that joke in today's culture.
Let's think about that joke in today's culture. You know, I think we're at a point now where no matter if you're clean or not, it's easy to offend. Audiences, in my opinion, are easy to offend in this day and age. Now, where that came from, we've gone from heckling to going on to a stage and attacking a comic. I guess Will Smith actually opened the door to that. But you you're dealing with issues out there now where you have to be extra careful about what you say and who you may offend. Do you agree or disagree with that, Valena?
I totally agree with that because the culture is so sensitive right now. And true testimony on myself, I do a bit about a person who is deaf.
Okay.
However, it's my own story. Our oldest son is deaf,
Okay.
as you know, and so I
Mhm.
do a joke about using sign language. And
Okay.
what I've had to do is before I do that bit, I say this is a disclaimer. I am not talking about anyone in the room or anyone who knows someone with challenges or disabilities. This is my own personal story. I didn't have to do that 10 plus years ago, but now because everything is so sensitive, clean or secular, you have to make sure you do not offend the room. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I think that the culture that we're living in right now, particularly coming out of COVID-19, while in my personal experience, the times I've been out, we see audiences more ready to laugh and have a good time because they've been shut up with COVID-19 for 2, 3 years, so they're ready to get out and laugh and have a good time. My shows have been so much easier to do because people were there to have a good time. However, the other side of that is we're seeing people get offended pretty easily, it seems, coming out of COVID-19. I've just noticed that people have a tendency to get angry. I had Kason Wilson on the show recently, and his take was very interesting to me. And he had a very different take. He felt like people that are taking an issue with uh, the reactions of audiences are people that probably aren't funny. Which I thought that was a very funny statement from a very funny man in Kason Wilson. But and that's just his take on it. I think the reality the reality is there's this element, I mean, testament to the trailer we just watched where Will Smith walked onto a national stage and open-handedly slapped a comic, which was unbelievable. Chris Rock said the greatest night in the history of television. Well, I don't know if it's the greatest night, but it's the most humiliating night and confusing night in the history of television. And it kind of caused a domino effect. I think Dave Chappelle had someone come on stage, and George, my gosh, what is the gentleman's name that did the show, the Latino comedian who's absolutely
Lopez.
George Lopez, I think, had an issue with a person that wanted to come after him. And anyway, it just opened. I think coming out of COVID-19, people may very well have been more sensitive. There is a thing called cancel culture. And I think as Christians, we probably face that more than anybody. Would you agree with that?
I agree again. I do a lot of Christian comedy shows, right? I'm not really in the clubs and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And in the church, you are offending people. Who was that comic back in the day? It's a guy. He would always say, "Come on, it's just comedy." Who was that?
I'm not
He would
sure.
he would tell the joke and people get real sensitive, and he was like, "Lighten up, it's just comedy." Like,
Yeah.
it's exaggerated and it's not true.
Yeah.
But I did an event and I made a joke. I made, because Maurice, I got 10 children, right?
Yes.
5
Yeah.
girls, 5 boys.
Yes.
So I do a little bit where I talk about the hand-me-downs. And we
Yeah.
all remember hand-me-downs is you are handing down your brother or sister's clothes for the next one in line. So I do
Yeah.
this quick bit, and I talked about the hand-me-downs. I tell my kids, come in the room, hand me down that box up there, and so I'm
Yeah.
going through all these clothes, and I said the only person who has a problem with it is my youngest son. He's tired of wearing pink shirts and Dora the Explorer panties.
Yes.
So it's just a joke, but I was pulled to the side later as if I referenced someone being gay, and I'm making
Yeah.
fun about, because I said he would wear a pink shirt. So they are very offended in the church. And it's hard for Christian comics because now you're trying to fashion your jokes and your set based on, you got to read the room, and it's just it's an unfortunate stand that we're all in right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I to Kason Wilson's aforementioned point about whether or not you're funny, I think the reality is what we're facing is going to make us tighten our game up and become more prolific at getting that humorous point across. It might offend, it may not, but it's one of those subjects where it could go either way if you're willing to go there. And I like going there. I like going there to the point where it's like, but we're not going to go over the line.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, but I think you're going to have to increase your proclivity and ability as a comedian. You're just going to have to learn how to craft that thing in a way that will get over the plate. And it's not easy in every instance. And I think in churches, it's a lot more difficult, no question. I like to do clubs as well as churches. I mean, I'm going to do the same thing no matter where I go. But I think when you're in a church setting, you better make sure you get that thing right, because they will turn you off. They will
And
do
I'm
that.
happy you said that, because in my bit I play a little bit of secular music.
Yeah.
And I asked the permission of the pastor before, because you don't want to offend, and the songs might play less than 15 seconds or 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But I get permission of the room, and I've done that. Being a pastor, my husband's a bishop.
Yeah.
We do reverence God. And
Yeah.
so I've been very sensitive and I'm not going to make your members backslide. We're not going to leave and go to the club after this. But again, it's just comedy. It's just some of the old school music. I don't have to go into that, but you just have to be so careful with every venue that you perform in.
Well, this is why I love the Comedy in the Kingdom tour, because out of about 20 approximately comedians that are associated with the tour, a great number of that group likes to play around with what may or may not be something the church is willing to accept, but they're good enough to get it over the plate. See, that's what I love about it. And you're one of those people. Leland's one of those people. Kason Wilson's one of those people. Mark Christopher Lawrence is one of those people. Gilbert Esquivel, a Latino comedian out of San Diego, is one of those people, part of the tour. Being able to kind of go there, but you're so good at your craft, people have no choice but to laugh. It's like, to your point, hey, it's just comedy, and hey, that's true, and and hey, that was pretty funny. And that's what the tour brings to the world. We can talk about reality, and we can do it in a way that is respectable, and people will go, you know what, that was really funny, and I respect you for not going to the gutter and talking on that subject. And I've had that happen to me in secular rooms before. I've done, shows with profane comedians, and the audience members said, I didn't even realize you weren't cursing. It dawned on me that you're not cursing, and you were getting the same reaction as the other comedians. And I want to thank them that. I appreciate it. So, I mean, people will definitely let you know that they appreciate the fact that you're not being dark, you're not being crass, you're not being profane. It does something to the room.
It totally does.
When you're doing that. And I mean, people may or may not even realize it, but you're doing something negative to the room. It's a negative energy that's being created that you may or may not be aware of. Even though you're laughing and having a good time, you've just allowed the enemy to enter the room.
Yeah.
And so people notice that when you do it the right way. I think Mark Christopher Lawrence was talking about an experience he had in a secular club where the comedian that had gone on before him used the F-bomb so many times, he started counting the number of times. Wow. And by the time the guy finished, he counted 40, not to mention the other times he'd used it prior to his count. And he noted, so when he went out on stage, he had to start singing to kind of get the room back to a place where he could now deliver his routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's definitely a negative energy that comes with that. And as I say all of that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks with comedian Valena Metcalfe, part of the Comedy in the Kingdom tour. So we're talking about the cancel culture and how people get upset or can at comedy shows, which is really nothing new. I mean, we know that hecklers are out there. They exist. Do you think clean comedians get heckled more than profane ones? What's your opinion on that?
I knock on wood because I've only done clean.
Okay.
And coming on 19 years, and I praise God that I've never been heckled.
Okay, amen.
Now, amen. Now, one thing that happened, and you got to think quick on your feet, is an interruption in the middle of your set.
Yeah.
So I'm out in Philly doing a show, and it was in a church. And so the pastor decided to sit up in the pulpit over like on the deacon's bench, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on the floor performing, and the audience is in all the pews. It's a packed house, having a great time.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, the pastor's son, who looked to be about 4 or 5, he just gets up from the audience and walks right in front of me to go up into the pulpit and sit down with his dad.
Yeah.
And so right in the middle of your set, you can lose it. So as a comic, we have to be like a head on a swivel.
Yeah.
We have to pay attention to the room. You have to pay attention to the heckles that could potentially happen.
Yeah.
And so, when I tell you, Maurice, he could have just touched the mic. He walked right in front of me. And so the audience is laughing. And, as a comic, we're a one-man show. So we're playing a script. And I'm thinking like, don't forget my next joke. So as he did that, I just stopped talking and I just let him, go on up. And then the pastor was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, what's his name? I just made it part of the bit.
Yeah.
I said, what's his name? And his name was Jackson.
Okay.
And I said, I thought about the movie Action Jackson. I said, Jackson gonna get some action if he walked back in front of me again. So that's the closest thing that ever happened. And I just think it can happen in any room. But I think people who are customary in a circular environment to shout insults up to the comics, they can feel a little like, oh, you think you're a goody two-shoe because you're not up here using profanity, and who do you think you are? So you just have to be ready at all costs. Again, I can't really read the room to say who gets teased more or heckled more, but I do know that it happens, and it's unfortunate. Because what happens, I'm gonna say this and let you go on, when they heckle, and I heard this during the conference, and you allow them in your set because you acknowledge them, now they're taking over your set.
Yeah.
So if you can ignore them and keep going, I guess that's just really what I'm trying to emphasize. If you can ignore it and keep on going and stay on task, you're good to go. But if you invite that distraction into your set, it's now part of your show.
What I've noticed in secular rooms or clubs is that when it happens, I will just give them their 15 seconds of fame and they'll go away. I said, you are right, sir, but you got to catch a hold of the rest of this because you're right. Not only that, and I'll keep going. And they feel like they've been recognized. They'll sit down and be quiet. 90% of the time, they think they're helping you. But I know that I did have an instance where a guy was drinking and he charged the stage in a secular club. He charged at me and he didn't come on stage, but he just kind of took the room by, huge surprise. It startled the room. And I said, everybody, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I promised him we'd go chase Pokemon later. And everybody started laughing. He was so embarrassed. He went and sat down, didn't say another word. So you don't know what you're going to do when it happens, but you have to be, like you accurately stated, your head has to be on a swivel. because the unpredictable can happen in a comedy routine. I mean, it's just part of the business. But yeah, I just thought I would throw that out because it's something that happens. I'll tell you something else that happens is bombing. And I wondered if you're the type of person that can just go, well, one of those bad day at the office, and hey, we'll go get them tomorrow. Or does it take you a few days to get over that before you're ready to get back at it?
I realized I couldn't take it personal. And again, you have to read the room. So someone told me a long time ago, and I'll shout him out. He's a promoter, Charles Kane.
Okay.
So Charles Kane here in the DMV, he said, Valena, you have to be concerned that all money, and I'll say it how he said, all money ain't good money. So, meaning you don't have to accept every gig. So what happened was I took a 70-year-old birthday party in a backyard summer event. And so I'm in this backyard. I'm walking as my heel is going into the ground. An airplane went overhead and a dog barking like 2 houses down.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So those experiences allowed me to say, when people reach out to book a show, what are the geographics?
Yes.
I'm not gonna, you understand? So now I call myself doing a skating party. They had like a extravaganza, and they had a band, they had a singer, they wanted some comedy. And you got a group of kids on this skating rink floor, and then you're telling everybody off the floor. And you know, I'm a skater. I'm 56. I still roller skate today. You don't want to get off the floor. So now you got all these kids mean mugging you, and you're on this floor. So you got to really think about, if I have a bad show, I did it to myself because I accepted this engagement. So I did a secular show and I did a club event, and I was the only female on the show and the only clean. And the guys before me, as you said, 25 F-bombs, they were going. So it's my turn. I get up and it's like crickets. I'm sitting, no laughter, and I beat myself up all the way in the car. My husband said, why are you doing that? You just did that same set a week ago, got a standing ovation. You have to recognize light and dark. He said, but if you got up there and said, hey, MNFers, what's going on? Oh, I would have had the room. But because I came with a posture of integrity and being clean, I wasn't well received. So again, I have to understand I can't accept every engagement.
No, you can't. I had an interview with comedian Sean Sarvis a couple of years ago. And you know, the setup, it's all about the room and the demographic and this and that and the other. Like Charles Kane says, all money ain't good money. And Sean Sarvis opened up at a rap concert. And, you know, he threw a couple of jokes out there. They were really funny. And he said, oh, I got him now, and proceeded to bomb. And the only way out of the venue was through the crowd. You got crickets going here, and Josh trying to get out of the building. And he walked by these 2 girls on his way out, and he overheard them say, he was so bad. And he said that he had to get therapy for that. It was so bad.
I can believe it.
That's why I threw the question out. How do you deal with those experiences? Because you can't avoid it. I mean, you're going to bomb. It's just going to, you go ahead and write it down. I mean, as you grow as a comedian and all those type of things. And even when you get really good, I mean, it's not impossible. It can be one of those bad nights. Jerry Seinfeld talked about a show at the when he was Jerry Seinfeld at the Smithsonian in DC, and the acoustics of the room was completely off. It had a high arcing ceiling, so his voice would just disappear, at the top of the room, and he bombed. He bombed. It can happen to anyone. I love asking the question because it's all about how do you respond to that? How do you rebound from that? And because it is, and I find it to be a very interesting question. I know for myself, I just thank God. I just go, well, I do a bad hair day. I don't have any hair, so I guess I'd have to say a bad day at the office. Anyway, it's like, it's one of those things. and you just get up and go, what can I learn? I always take the approach of what can I learn from that?
Yeah.
What could I have done to have prevented that? Go back to what you just said, read the room. Charles Kane said, all money ain't good money. Should I have even taken this gig? Was there something I could have done to get the audience back in? Brad Stein, who is a Caucasian comic, friend of mine, we did a show back in 2013, and he thought I was a white guy when we talked about it on the phone, Hey, I went to pick him up at the airport. He's like, my God, you're black. Anyway, we did that. So I took him to the venue, and Brad, was expecting a white audience, and everybody was black. And he started bombing. But you know what he did? He pivoted in Valena after about 2-3 minutes, and he destroyed the room. And he told me afterwards, he said, Maurice, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've seen it all. You just got to make adjustments. So there's so many things that you can do in this game where you don't have to experience that. I don't think you ever stop learning in comedy, Valena.
Absolutely. And one other thing that I don't have to preach to the choir, because I'm sure you know this, but I did an event, 750 people in a room, a big gala that had 3 buffet stations.
Yeah.
And they put me up right at the start of meal service. So I had to take the complete ignoring of me, because now everybody's at the buffet table
100%.
and bringing their plates, and everybody, you hearing the china clinking and the silverware, and I'm up there and I'm blood, sweat, and tears trying to bring it. And then for a moment, I said, check the room. No one's paying attention. And before anybody else, if you're bombing. So the joke that I said was, you know what? Let me go ahead and get off this stage, because I promise you, I am not finna lose to a piece of chicken. And they lost their mind. And I exit stage left. It is okay to bow out gracefully when you realize that it's going south. So now I know in my contracts that I do not perform during meal service.
Yeah, that is a recipe for disaster, taking a job like that. Comedian Nazareth does the same thing. I mean, when he's starting to head for the crash and burn, he just gets off, says, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been great. And he leaves. And it happens. Valena, this has been a great conversation. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you, what advice can you leave with young comedians out there that are getting started and they want to do it clean?
I would recommend finding a mentor.
Okay.
Someone that you can tag along with. Do your research. Google who's in your local area and reach out to them and just give your plea. Hey, I'm brand new in this. I'm super excited about the opportunity. I've studied your craft and I see that you're doing great things. I wanted to know, do you have an opportunity to take on a mentee? I would like to shadow you. Can you give some recommendations? Are there any open mics that you can suggest that I can go, even if I'm not on stage, but just kind of getting some tutelage, and try to find a comedy class. But what's so important is writing.
Yes.
We don't have total recall, even new in the game. You'll see something funny, because you can find comedy in everything, right? So if you see something funny, keep a book in the car with you. Keep a notepad on your nightstand. Sometimes you dream about something funny. And when you're in your dream, you're like, man, this is hilarious. I got to make sure I take a note of this. Try to keep as current as you can, as active as you can, and glean from some of the trailblazers that went before you, and get a buddy. Lock arms with a buddy. It's good to have a buddy system.
Yeah, I love the advice. Comedy is a game of writing. It's good to have colleagues that you can collaborate with, talk to, encourage, get encouragement from. There's a lot of factors that go into it, because by the time you get to that venue, you need to be ready to rock and roll. And because you've already done the hard stuff. You've already done the preparation. When you get to the venue, you need to be ready to roll and be on top of your material to the point where it's like, yeah, I got this, but you don't want to be overconfident, but you've got to be ready to roll when you get there. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Valena Metcalfe, comedian who is a part of the Comedy in the Kingdom tour, which is coming your way next summer. You're listening to Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks. And you can also hear this show where all major podcasts are heard on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Radiocast, Pocket Cast, you name it. We are there. And also, you can watch this show on KCHF TV and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Love us out there, Valena, New Mexico, every Saturday at midnight, and then again at 8 p.m. prime time on Saturday night, KCHF TV in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Valena, this has been a great convo. I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and may the peace of Jesus Christ be with you and your family. God bless you.
God bless. We'll be in touch.